Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Resident Life Stories. And I'm delighted that Dave Soderlund said yes when I asked him, would he be my guest or our guest for all of us? Dave, hi, how are you?
We're fine.
Good. We are fine. That means Carol and you, correct?
That's correct.
Good. Tell us a little bit about the situation, the COVID situation, the last few months, how you and Carol fared through this.
Well, we've been pretty much staying at home, Zooming with our grandkids. Our son calls daily.
Oh,
He's very busy, especially with the disruption that's going on.
mm-hmm.
And our daughter in law is a teacher, so she's been having her classes via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And our granddaughters have been attending their classes in the morning on Zoom.
Okay. How old are your granddaughters?
Uh, One is 14 and the other is 12.
Okay. So all four of them were home? Like your son as well? Were they all at home working from home?
He could go to his office or work from home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So while we're at this, where are they living?
They're about 7 miles northwest of here, just west of Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Oh, okay. So they're very close. That's wonderful.
And
So,
then we have another grandson who's 21. He's wants to be a doctor,
mhm.
and he's going to USF. He lives in Spring Hill.
Okay. So the whole
He's still,
family.
yes, he's still living at home, and that's
Yeah.
why we're here. Tutu is grandmother in Hawaiian, so that's why we moved to be near the grandkids.
Wonderful. That's great. Yeah, so Hawaiian, you're already touching on some of your life story, all these interesting places that you've been and lived. Shall we start with where you were born?
Sure, I was born as a lot of people here. It's amazing. I just met a gal this morning that said, oh, her mother was from Coalport, which is about 7 miles from Clearfield, where I was born. There's a whole bunch of people that went to Penn State.
Uh-huh.
We've even gone to the Alumni Association at Billy Stonecrab to watch football games. We all wear our Penn State things. I hope Mark heard that.
Uh-huh.
And it's in northwestern Pennsylvania on the west branch of the Susquehanna. And its now claim to fame is that it's on Route 80. And there's a huge Walmart distributor ship there that can handle like 70 trucks at one time.
Wow. So that's where you were born and grew up?
Yes, until I went away to school.
So a little bit about your family history, your parents, did you have siblings or do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a relatively small family. I only have 10 cousins, and none of my aunts and uncles are still with us. I just lost my aunt just the end of last month. She was 104.
Oh, wow. That's a long,
So,
wonderful
so
life.
our Swedish side of the family has some good genes.
Yeah. Yeah. The name Soderlund is Swedish, correct?
Yes, and we don't know because my grandfather passed away and nobody ever wanted to know. And my aunt didn't know. His name should have been Carlson. And
Oh,
I've been to Sweden a couple times. We know where the farm was where my grandfather was from. I've been to the farm where my grandmother was born.
oh, okay.
And so I've traveled with my cousins. She's art, I don't want to say minister, but she has the southern part of Sweden. She's in charge of art. So we've been to Florence and they've been to Hawaii. They came here to my son's wedding.
Huh.
So we've had some great times with relatives.
That's wonderful. Do you speak Swedish?
No, my
No.
cousins and my neighbor on Treasure Island says your Swedish is lousy. So I can say school.
School, I can say that too. That's an important one.
That's right.
So where did you go to school after high school, Dave?
I went to Penn State,
You said that, sorry. Yeah. Mhm,
and I was finally admitted to the College of Engineering.
mhm.
Uh, I didn't do well, and so they put my sophomore year, they put a senior mechanical engineer in with me to try to straighten me out.
Huh.
Well, he was brilliant. I don't think he opened a book. I never saw him study, and he had a car. So after we were on a term system. After my third term, they said, well, if you leave now, you can come back anytime. But if you have another term like your last term, you're not coming back here. So I took a vacation and joined the Navy
Oh.
and spent 3 years, 9 months, and 1 day there. And then returned. I went to school. I worked nights, luckily, when I was in the Navy.
Mhm.
And I was at a naval air station outside of San Diego. So I ultimately graduated from San Diego State.
Mhm. With a
And that's,
degree in engineering?
no, actually, I have a BS in business. Uh, but I'm also a registered professional engineer. But because I worked for an engineer and had enough math and science credits, I was able to qualify to be a registered professional engineer, which is time and grade and a test, and you have to work for a registered engineer. So it's it's quite a thing
Huh.
that nobody knows about.
Oh, I've never heard that. So, I mean, you don't have to have a degree, but you can, through testing and having enough credits, you can be, so to speak, certified. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'm certified safety professional as well, but
Uh-huh.
I'm a registered professional engineer in California.
Mhm, mhm. Dave, where did you go from there? So we're in San Diego right now.
Yes, well, I got to go. I got to uh, spend 10 days on a ship. And you ask about exciting times. That was probably the most adventurous,
Huh.
was night operations on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. By that time, I was electronics technician, and I was a troubleshooter. So when the pilot said, you know, my radio isn't working and gives me the thumbs down, I would go up while the plane's on the launch and plug my equipment in and say, you're right, you don't have a radio, or this is not working, or whatever, electronically. And I'd say, have a nice flight, sir, because he's on the catapult and they
Oh,
can't take him off. So
wow.
they shoot him off, and he rides around up there with maybe no navigation equipment or no radio until everybody's launched and they're ready to recover people. But
Hmm.
if you watch the first couple minutes of Top Gun, that gives me chicken skin every time I watch that.
Hmm. Hmm. So I've never heard that. So the pilot actually is not in charge. Once he is in a certain position, they catapult him off, and he just has to go
If
with
you
that.
if you watch the movie, they even put their hand up, and they
Uh-huh.
have to give it full throttle with afterburner. But when he's set to launch, connected to the catapult, they can't take him off because there's other planes behind him lined up. So
Yeah.
they just shoot him off no matter what.
Wow. Any I mean, is there ever any accident or something if they don't have instruments, or they're fine and they can land just fine without it? I have
Well,
no idea.
yeah, we were, this is carrier quals. These guys were qualifying to land on a carrier.
Hmm.
And there were some guys that had never landed at sea on a carrier before. And some of them, especially at night, didn't make it. So
Oh,
when they land, there's a hook that goes on a wire. And when they set down, they have the hook down. Hopefully, sometimes they forget to put that down, and they give full throttle afterburner. And if it doesn't hook, they take off again. But if they have a problem, they would fly back to either the mainland
oh,
or island offshore and land and have the equipment repaired.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting. So did you say you were on the carrier for 10 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Out of
And
my 3 years, almost 4 years in the Navy, I spent 10 days at sea.
wow. Okay. And what else? What did you do during the other time?
So I worked at Miramar Naval Air Station, and we were a composite squadron, had a whole bunch of different planes.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting because you weren't working on the same thing every day.
Yeah. Oh.
And it was right after the Gulf of Tonkin, that kind of, I was set to go to flight school, but the Navy said, well, we need electronic technicians to fix the airplanes that are out in the desert. And
Mm.
this war isn't going to last very long. So 3 or 4 or 5 years to get a pilot going, we need people now. So they sent 14 of us. Instead of going to Pensacola and be officers and gentlemen, we were sent off to be, they put us in the scullery in Memphis, Tennessee,
Oh.
peeling potatoes.
Huh.
And we'd all had over 2 years of college, all over 21, uh, smart enough to be qualified and selected for flight school.
Hmm.
And they put us in the in the galley. That was really that was the end of my career. I said,
Oh.
I am out of here after that.
Wow. Yeah, that's disappointing. So you then, where are you going from there?
Well, I did get my degree, and one of my shipmates, actually, the Gulf of Tonkin event happened, and the war ramped up so much there wasn't any room for us in the barracks. So we were petty officers, and we were allowed to live off base. So we rented a house, and one of my shipmates married Carol's best friend from high school,
Hmm.
and she was sort of a matchmaker, and so she got us together, and that's how I met Carol.
Oh, so this friend just said, "Oh, I know a wonderful woman. Do you want to meet her?" Was that how it went?
Well, she kind of invited me to a couple parties and
Uh-huh.
kind of slid in the introduction.
Right. And you saw her and you were smitten?
uh, just about,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because some people just see somebody and they know that's it, right? And for
yeah,
others, it takes a while. So it's interesting.
yeah. Well, her other boyfriend had a Porsche,
Oh,
and I only had an MG, but I still beat him out.
wow. Good for you. Good for you. And good for her, both of it.
Yeah, so we've had a wonderful life. We only had one son,
Oh.
who's been very successful. We're very proud of him,
Hmm.
and very proud of our grandchildren. In fact, our oldest one just graduated from ninth grade, if you can, or eighth grade.
Going into high school? Yeah.
Yeah, which we never did anything like that. You know, they had a big ceremony, and although it was on Zoom,
Yes.
and she won the top uh, girl student in her school, along with her boyfriend, who her
Oh,
mother cringes whenever I say that, but her boyfriend won the boys award, so we're very proud of them.
yeah. Good for them. That's wonderful. So back to your son. When and where was your son born?
He was born in Hawaii,
Okay.
in the same hospital allegedly as Obama,
Mm-hmm.
and so he grew up. We lived right at the beach, and he never wore anything but a diaper for about 2 years.
Mm.
Was brown as a berry. We tanned very well,
Yeah.
and we lived right on the beach. And he went to the beach every day with the dog and his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to the Big Island. I got transferred over there because we had a lot of construction going on, and I had blasting safety
Okay, wait one
experience.
second, Dave. We missed a step here. Why did you go to Hawaii? Where
Oh, they needed some fellow in Hawaii. There were three people there, and they sent the youngest third guy to Kauai, and he never came back for 2 years.
Hmm.
Uh, Elizabeth Taylor's brother had a hippie place. This was in 1972,
Mm-hmm.
and had a hippie camp. And our guy went to Kauai, turned in his hard hat and his briefcase, and never came back from 2 years. Naked, lived in a tree, and had a wonderful time.
Oh, so, and that was at Elizabeth Taylor's brother's
Brother.
place.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then we had a lot of construction, and I was going to the Big Island all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally said, "Well, we're just going to send you over there." So we lived out in the country, had an acre, had a dog, and the kid could run around. It was great.
Sounds
And
perfect.
we had a Blazer, a 4-wheel drive. We had a sailboat. We camped out. It was a wonderful place to raise a kid.
It sounds
And
like it.
although we sent him to preschool, and there were 2 other Erics there. Now I'd never known an Eric except uh, Eric the Red, and
Uh-huh.
there were 2 other Japanese kids there named Eric. There were
Wow.
3 Erics in a small preschool. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you moved to Hawaii because of a job?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
we both had headhunters. Carol worked for the state at that time, state of Hawaii, and I had headhunters calling and saying, "Well, what kind of car do you have? I can get you a better car and this and that." So we thought, well, we don't have any problem coming back if we don't like it.
right.
So we liked it and stayed for 33 years.
Oh my. What a
9 years, 9 years on the Big Island.
yeah. And your son went to school there? I mean, to a university, or did he?
No, he graduated. Well, we sent him to a Seventh-day Adventist school on the Big Island,
Mhm.
which was really wonderful, except they have some strange tasting spaghetti sauce when you go to the PTA meetings. But
Those,
we're very happy with his education. And then he went to junior college, and then we sent him to Western Washington State in Bellingham.
uh-huh. Off the island, yeah.
Yeah. But he'd been back and forth since he was 7 years old. We sent him back almost for 7 years to Pennsylvania to spend at least a month or so with his grandparents.
Wonderful.
And of course, they trucked him all over the East Coast, showing him off to all the relatives and everything.
Okay. So he had a different experience than just living. I don't mean just, but living on the island. So 30, did you say 33 years on Hawaii?
Yes.
Wonderful. And you talked about a sailboat, and I know sailing is a love of yours. So can you tell us more about that? Can we call it? It's one of your. It's a passion.
Yes,
Sailing.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carol also, her mother worked for what is now the largest sail maker in the world,
Mm-hmm.
North Sails. Carol sailed for the North Sails as in a snipe. She sailed in the Nationals, so she
Oh,
was a sailor.
wow.
Dad had a boat, and although he had a power boat, we used to sit in the bar and drink scotch and talk stink about the sailors that brought their own beer to the yacht club and try to hide it so they were so cheap they didn't buy anything. And then we are one. So,
Oh no.
but we had a lot of little sailboats in Hawaii. One time I bought a sailboat, and when we lived in Makaha, which was 37 miles from Honolulu,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have a trailer hitch. So I went to the U-Haul place, and they said, "Well, we don't rent trailer hitches. You have to rent a trailer to get the trailer hitch." So I said, "Okay, give me a trailer." They put the trailer hitch on my bumper. I drove out, dropped the trailer off, picked up the boat, drove home, came back, and hooked up the U-Haul trailer and took it back.
Great. Knowing how to work around things is a good gift, a great talent. Yeah.
Well, you learn that growing up in a small town and living on an island like the Big Island. It was wonderful. Everybody knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We all went to everybody's political functions.
Mm-hmm.
That on the Big Island cost, like for stew and rice, political things cost $5. On Oahu, the same speaker, the same candidate would have a thing at some fancy hotel that was $50 or $100 to get in.
Wow. Wow.
And we had a wonderful office. Carol had finally got a job when she first moved to to Hawaii, you had to live there a year before you could work for the state
Oh,
because they were trying to limit immigration.
yes. Hmm.
And they even thought at one time of limiting the number of cars. The traffic now on Oahu is just horrendous. It is just mind-boggling.
I don't know. I haven't been, but so then Carol, so for a year she stayed home and then she got a job with the state.
Yeah, almost 3 years or 4 years. We had an acre on the Big Island that we bought from a German family,
Oh,
and so it was immaculate. They had raised gardens. We were on lava,
yeah.
black lava with green grass, and it was so beautiful that Japanese tourists used to stop and take pictures of our garden. And
Wow.
finally, Carol said, "You know what? I'm tired of being a gardener. I'm going to get a job, and we'll hire a gardener,"
Oh,
which is what she did.
right, right. So when you like, tell us a little bit more about your sailing career. I know you sailed lots of places in the world. Did you ever take a sailboat around the world or no?
No, and I never sailed in Europe or the Med. I've been there on power boats and cruise ships and river boats, but never got to Europe. But I
Mhm.
did when we lived in Hawaii. We went to Asia a lot,
Mm.
and I've been to 9 Asian countries, and 5 of them multiple times that I've raced in, and delivering boats as well as racing them
Mhm.
in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia,
Wow.
and then also in California and Mexico. Some of my friends, it's always best to have a friend with a sailboat,
Hmm.
uh, would bring their boats over to race back in the Trans-Pacific race from Los Angeles to Honolulu.
Wow.
And while the boat was in California, we raced to Mexico 3 different times. And then one time we chartered a big maxi boat, 68 feet, and raced that down the coast of west coast of Mexico.
Wow. Wow. So boating was a great big part of your life for both of you. For Carol and you, did you ever sail with her or?
Oh yes, and ultimately we ended up with a 37-foot sailboat of our own.
Mm, mhm.
And I was going to show you, but the pictures on the anyway. It was really a nice boat, a very successful boat. It won the Victoria to Maui race, and it had gone. The previous owner, of course, somebody sailed it to Hawaii. Then the previous owner bought it in Hawaii and sailed it to Tahiti and back. So it was a great boat, and we had a
Wonderful.
lot of fun. We sailed inter island a lot.
Mhm.
We won in our boat. We won the Lahaina return race, which is the biggest race because it's downwind at 72 miles. But you leave Lahaina and it's all downwind until you get back to Oahu.
Wow. That sounds like, I mean, to have a passion together like that and do things sounds like a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I remember talking to you, you were mentioning that, you know, you were vacationing a lot in Asia. And frankly, it's never occurred to me, Dave, that is actually the nearest destinations, right? If you, I mean, going to Europe is how many hours, and going to Asia is maybe half the distance, correct?
Well, we just went to China in October, except the end of September and October,
Hmm.
and luckily we didn't get the virus. Uh, and I think they knew something was going on even before that.
Really?
Uh, uh, and it was 18 hours. Actually, by the time we left our house till we got to Hong Kong, it was 26 hours,
Wow.
which was a long time.
Yes.
But it
Yes.
was interesting. Now we got to Hong Kong, and I really didn't pay any attention. And we were on a Viking Ocean cruising ship, ocean going,
Right.
and so we sailed up the east coast of China. And in every port, they had immigration, customs, and they had a health screening station that
Wow.
I'd never seen before. And we traveled in Europe and South America and all over, and never seen a health screening station. They didn't screen anybody, but it was there available. So
Oh, interesting. So they didn't take temperature or something like that. It was just there.
yeah, and there were people there sometimes.
Huh. But they didn't do anything. I mean, you didn't have to fill something out like we have to fill out now every time we come and work or get the temperature taken if we do things. So nothing like that. But there was a screening station. Interesting. So you think they
Yeah,
already knew something was up?
yes. They now think they probably knew as early as August,
Oh, okay. Wow. So,
but I don't think there were only. Well, the reason we went was because of the disturbance in Hong Kong, and the boat had a lot of cancellations.
oh,
So we paid less than half price.
okay. Wow.
So for one person, I
Yeah.
mean, for two people, we paid less than one person uh,
Wow.
to go. So we're bottom feeders. So we hopped on that right away.
That's
And we'd
great.
been there before. Some of the places, Carol had been 42 years ago, some of the seaports that we'd been to.
Hmm. That sounds like a good. So I remember talking to you, like you've traveled a lot, correct? Just
Yes.
so what is one of your favorite places that you went to?
Uh, there's some places in Asia that we really loved
Tell us
uh,
about
because
one.
we traveled by ourselves. We didn't go with tour groups.
Oh,
Although
okay.
the first time Carol went with an overseas Chinese group, and when in Chengdu, and they were lined up to get on the train, the people kept taking her because there were two groups. The group from Hawaii, everybody had black hair. They were either Chinese or married to some Chinese. And so my blonde, blue-eyed wife, they kept grabbing her and putting her in a line with a bunch of Germans.
Oh,
And she kept saying, "No, no, I'm over here." So, but she had a wonderful time. They lived in, this was in 70, 76 or 75. So it was
hmm,
early on. It just opened up, and what they were trying to do is get the overseas Chinese to send money back to their relatives
okay.
and take a bicycle or a sewing machine and whatever,
Hmm,
because everybody was really poor. Everybody was wearing Mao suits back then,
hmm.
and it was really something else. And then several years later, whenever Tiananmen Square was, we were actually in Thailand and met a teacher that had her class. She was in Kunming teaching English as a second language or whatever to university students, and her
Yeah.
class was there, and she got out uh, and was really shaken, having been in there when the thing happened.
Wow. Incredible. So
And
why
then
did Carol go? Was that kind of like job related when she went?
no, she used to go by herself.
Hmm,
So she worked for the state, and she could save up 2 years vacation, which was 30 working days. So
okay.
she'd save up and go for 60 days, 60 working days.
Hmm.
And whenever she left, I'd say to my son, "Well, what do you want to eat?" And he'd say, "God, anything but chicken or fish," because we were on the heart healthy diet.
Oh,
But she used to go with her friend who was from the Big Island and got a job teaching English in Kunming.
hmm.
And so they would go and on her summer vacation, her friend's summer vacation, then they would travel all around together. She spoke Chinese, but Carol traveled by herself in China, which her Mandarin, her teacher said, "You'll never speak Mandarin," just like my French teacher told me.
Uh-huh.
And but they'd been to Burma and India. The hotel they were staying in, the polling place was next door to it, and they blew that up. And all the guys in the turbans and white gloves ran out and closed the gates in front of the hotel. So
Wow.
they've had some adventures.
Yeah. So while she went on adventures, you stayed home and worked,
Yes.
and you weren't jealous?
No, because I got to go sailing with some of the same places. We've been like to Malacca. We've been to Malacca, but not together.
Oh, where's Malacca? Sorry, I have to ask.
Oh, that's a wonderful port on the west coast of Malaysia.
Okay.
And it was where the boogie boats took off. The blue sailed dhow like boats would sail to India on
Uh-huh.
the monsoon. So
Oh,
the monsoon, either the east or west, and in the winter they'd sail west, and then the monsoon they'd sail back the next year, next 6 months.
wow. So you were showing me something earlier. You won some kind of a sailing regatta,
Oh,
or what was that?
yeah, this was the
Yeah,
second place second place trophy for the King's Cup in Thailand.
oh,
And the king of Thailand, who's now passed, the former king, his parents uh, went to Harvard, and so he went to Harvard, and he was on the sailing team.
oh,
So one of his passions was sailing,
uh-huh.
and he started this regatta in Phuket that sailed around the Andaman Sea.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got involved with a friend of mine uh, from Hong Kong, meeting him at an international sailing event that was held in Honolulu. And he said, oh, I'd seen this poster uh, about the King's Cup when we were in Thailand. And I asked him about it. He said, oh, what we'll do is, he said, I have a bunch of mates from uh, Shanghai, no, Singapore, that have chartered this boat, but we got to deliver it. Why don't you come over and we'll deliver it, and we'll enter this race called the Raja Muda, which races up the west coast of Malaysia. And
Hmm.
then we'll deliver the boat, and then the crew will, these expats, will join us in Thailand.
Hmm.
So we actually came second. There's a picture of us up here on the wall, uh, four of us with two Kent girls. The regatta was partially sponsored by Kent cigarettes. And
Huh.
one time we had around the world cruise join us, and there were three French boats.
Hmm.
And we all know the French, right? So they don't know, like the Chinese, they don't know chew, but they have sharp elbows. So they would run up to the front, run in the banquet room, pick up all the each table had Kent cigarettes in little cardboard cigarette things. Anyway, the French would go and grab all the cigarettes and of course start smoking them right away. I mean,
Oh,
it was pretty funny. But you got to love French cheese and wine. It's the best.
okay. Okay. So you had, I mean, I don't know. So when you want to be part of a sailing race or regatta, I think it's called. So you just apply, and do you have to prove that you're good enough, that you've won something before? How does that work, Dave?
Yeah, now a lot of, like in Singapore when I was there, you had to have a license,
Oh,
just like you had to have a license to drive, and you had to have a license, and you had a logbook where you had to log so many things in. Well, being a Farang, I skipped all that stuff. And my friend, that's another interesting story that'll get longer as I tell it. Uh, I went over there a week early to get a red hat, if you can believe that. Uh, but anyway, so I was there a week early, and we had to get the boats back from Changi Yacht Club, which is on the east side of Singapore's kind of long, drawn out island, back to Keppel Shipyard, which is on the west side where the sailboats were moored and sailed out of. And so my friend said, okay, I'll take the bigger boat, which was a 38-foot sailboat. And he said, you take the smaller one, which was a 36-foot sailboat. And he said, well, we'll just take them back over. And there's going to be three of my students who have never sailed through Singapore. And Singapore Harbor, if you fly in there at night, it's like flying into LA or Las Vegas, but all those lights are ships. There's
oh,
like 400 ships moored out there in including offshore drilling rigs and big freighters and all kinds of
Mhm.
ships either waiting for whatever. And so I thought, well, okay, this is going to be easy. I'll just follow Tony,
Mhm.
just follow him because he knows the way. Well, I don't know whether it was a test. Now that I think about it, I think it might have been a test because next thing I know, he disappears
Wow.
because there's all these lights and it's very difficult to navigate. And so I'm navigating because these people had never done this before. And I
Oh.
remember it was a Chinese gynecologist was driving, and he said, "Oh wow!" He said, "How do you get around? Which light? Well, I said, "Well, there's the flash." They knew that flashing beacons, and it's in code, and this one flashes 3 times, or this one red and blue, and you can pick your route.
Right.
And he says, "Well, how long have you been doing this?" I said, "Oh, I never done this before. I just flew in this morning from Hawaii." And I thought he was going to have a heart attack, like Fred Sanford going, "Oh."
But
But
you
it was
made it.
yeah. And then I got to deliver boats from Singapore up to Port Klang, where they go up there and then race in the Rajamuda. And that was interesting. The first time I went in, uh, uh, I met the Raja Muda, who's the son of the Sultan. And the Sultan of Selangor is the patron of the Selangor Yacht Club. And Selangor is the area around Kuala Lumpur. And it's very rich and has been very rich for a long time because of tin.
Oh.
That was the big, there's tin mines there, and as
Okay.
well as rubber. And so he comes up to me and says, "You're from Hawaii." He said, "How are the condominiums selling in Waikiki?" I go,
Oh.
"Really?" Because he owned a condominium and traveled to Hawaii all the time.
Oh.
But
Okay.
it's interesting that uh, the king of Malaysia is one of 9 sultans that are elected by the other sultans. So he's going to be king of Malaysia someday.
Oh. So that's the system. How they determine who the next king will be. It's not like in England. The crown prince is going to become the king, or
Yeah, so what they do is they make sure they elect the oldest and feeblest sultan to be the king, so it moves right along. And
so
then
they
it
know they'll
also,
be next.
yeah, and that ensures that your cousin doesn't poison you, like in England. Uh, so your turn's coming, and then you can steal everything.
Oh.
And it
Oh.
was interesting. He was married to an American who was from Mill Valley,
Oh.
a
Okay.
small world.
It.
And one of the places I worked, our chief mechanic was a friend of his. They used to drink and gamble together.
Wow.
Small world.
It is a small world. So Dave, so when you lived in Hawaii and you retired from your jobs, both you and Carol retired from your jobs. And so how did you come? I know it's because of family, but tell us about the process to come to Westminster Shores. How did you get to the shores?
Well, we lived in a 3-story townhouse in Treasure Island,
Oh, okay.
and so this is the first time in 40 some years we haven't lived on an island, which is pretty strange. But we had an idea that we're getting older, and like my stockbroker's friend, uh, he said, all these people are having all these problems. A lot of them have to do with one trying to take care of the other person at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, well, that's a good idea to uh, find some place where we can retire and age gracefully in place.
Yes. Yes.
And so we looked at 7 other facilities,
Hmm.
and
All
and
around this area here?
yes,
Yeah.
including Bradenton.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is closer. Our kids lived right off 4th Street at that time,
Mm-hmm.
which was much closer. And so we decided that we would move over here. The time was right, and there was so much to do here, and we're still very active, uh, thank goodness.
Yes.
And and so it fit right in. We love the people that we met. Our neighbors are fantastic,
Mhm.
and the staff is wonderful. And we can't wait to go on a trip,
I
go on the
know
men's
that
mystery lunch.
that must have, I mean, I have been thinking about that, and I know you enjoyed going on trips. What was the hardest part of this COVID? What were you missing most? I mean, you just talked about trips. Was that what you missed most about the programming, or?
Yeah, and not to be able to go anything. We got between the two of us, we have almost 400,000 air miles.
Oh. Mhm.
And we're hey, now we can go anywhere, and we're setting up to go uh, maybe back to Italy. We loved Italy, Cinque Terre, which is
Yeah.
busy, busy, busy. And
Yeah.
we've been with my cousin uh, uh, to outside Florence. We rented a villa there with them, and we've we love South America.
Where have you been in
Buenos,
South America?
We've been to Buenos Aires twice.
Mhm.
We sailed around the Horn twice.
Oh,
We've been
okay.
to Santiago 3 times. We've sailed once the whole way around South America. That was another bottom feeder trip that we took. When we looked at it, it was $3,500 a piece for 52 days. It was a repositioning cruise on Carnival's newest ship, which was so big it couldn't go through the Panama Canal.
Wow.
So we looked at it and said, yeah, it's $7,000. And we said, well, we'll go maybe to Europe instead of 50 some days on a ship. And then about 2 months before, we get a notice. We used to go with a consolidator from Sarasota, which typical of uh, the first generation starts the company, the second one takes care of it, and the third one ruins a family company. So
Mhm.
they've since gone out of business. But we get this thing for $799 if you have some military connection. So I called up 4 of my Navy buddies and
Yeah.
said, this is the trip of a lifetime, and buy stock, because if you own 100 shares of stock in Carnival Corporation, they have a benefit program for stockholders.
Wow.
So depending on the length and where you are, whether it's dollars or euros or whatever, anything over 14 days, you get, or 13 days, you get $250 onboard credit.
Hmm.
So I paid $799, and it was 3 segments. So I got 250, 250, 250. So I got credited back $750, and I only paid $799.
Oh my
So I
God.
paid $49 for a 52-day cruise. And it was the ship was terrible. Carnival gives you a headache. I mean, the decor was just outrageous. But the places we went, and who can go for that long? So there was some turnover. There
Yeah.
were some people from here. There was a guy from Treasure Island and his girlfriend. We had 2 friends that were going who he was in a traffic accident and broke his hand and was in one of those air splint things. And his surgeon said, you're not going to South America with open wounds like that. So there were some cancellations, and that's what happened is
Oh.
they tried to fill up the ship
Hmm.
and hope you gamble, which we don't do.
Yeah.
And we had it with 4 friends, 4 couple or 3 other couples, and we didn't all hang out, but we met for dinner and
Uh-huh.
and and traveled with them before, so we all had a wonderful time.
Wow. You let me know next time you find any
Yeah,
of those deals.
yeah, that's what everybody says. And we
Well,
doubled it until this crash. We doubled our value of stock, and when it was down, I just bought more, and it's back up. Uh, I don't know what it is today, but we'd already doubled what I paid for it when it was at $7-10 a share.
wow. Wow. You let us know and we'll advertise it at Westminster so people can go. That's incredible. That's incredible, Dave. So we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, but I want to like just have a question. I mean, is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to say I had a wonderful family.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of my favorite memories was with my grandfather, my mother's father, who built a cabin in the mountains. He bought old barns and had big hand-hewn logs, and all my father and all my uncles said he didn't build anything. He said we built that. He said we built it with slave labor. He said you want to take my daughter out on Saturday night? You come Saturday morning and work on the cabin.
Oh my. Where
And
was
then
the cabin? Where was the cabin?
it was on Lick Run in Pennsylvania, a tributary to the Susquehanna River,
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful trout stream. We never caught very many trout, but we go out there and just sit there and watch the fire in the fireplace. And then I had an island when I was like 10 years old. I had an island in the middle of Lick Run that I
Uh-huh.
could go to. And only child, I ran around in the woods and did all kinds of stuff with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And, just had a wonderful, wonderful time, wonderful family, wonderful place to grow up. And we traveled a lot too,
You did?
even, even as just the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was your favorite trip with your parents?
oh, well, I got to say it was my dad was president of a association one time, and uh, so he'd go to this convention, and we'd stay in this hotel that was built in 1897 in a real ritzy section where people from uh, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Harrisburg would come for the summer.
Okay.
Mainly leave their families there, and then the men would go back and clip coupons or whatever they did. Anyway, there was no price on the menu.
Oh.
And I said, Dad, you mean I can order anything? That was wonderful. That was a trip. And our longest trip was the first time I'd been to St. Petersburg when I was 14. We
Oh.
drove all the way to Texas to visit my cousins and uncle and aunt. And then we drove through here. I went across the old bridge and we went to Coral Gables, where my mother's golfing buddy in the summertime, her sister was married to Claude Pepper, who was a senator, a U.S. senator at that time. He's also senator in the state of Florida. And so they ditched me on the Rose Bowl game, but I got to stay at his house. And he had a button, and there you could order anything you want for breakfast too. And the maid would bring it in. It was great. But I
Oh.
went swimming in his swimming pool on New Year's Day, which was quite a thing. Nobody in my class had ever gone swimming on New Year's Day
Yeah.
back in Pennsylvania.
I remember coming to Florida and it was like, it was November or December. You could just be outside in the evening with, a t-shirt. Yeah. Great, great, great memories. So, Dave, when you look back, like your life, the whole lifespan, is there any event that sticks out for you? Any experience that you're really like, that was an amazing, I mean, no, you had a lot of wonderful experiences, but is there anything like your favorite that we haven't heard
Oh,
about?
well, of course, I have to say my wedding.
Oh.
Carol can hear that. We had a wonderful wedding. She was a beautiful bride. And I've seen all our grandchildren born. And so I think that's, so many people don't even know who their grandfather is.
Yeah. So your grandkids, you said you have 3 grandkids,
Yes.
2 younger one and 1 older one that's already out of the house, right?
Yes. He's going to University of USF.
Yes. Yeah. And
He's going to
he's
go to
gonna,
medical school.
yeah. Well, that's great. I'm so where was your wedding? Now that you brought it up, was that in San Diego? Where did you and Carol meet? Where was
Yeah.
that?
Yes. We got married in San Diego at a wedding chapel at the Catamaran Resort on Mission Bay, and it was some big mansion, English mansion's dining room, and they'd taken it apart and shipped it over and then made it into a wedding chapel. And
Great.
so we were married by her best friend. her father was a widower, and he was retired Navy admiral. He was a lawyer and a great bon vivant. He sang in the opera.
Oh,
He and his second, I don't know whether it was his girlfriend or wife, I don't know whether he married, started their own church, the Church of the Phoenix. And they had the big gold phoenix with ruby eyes or something was their symbol they hung around their neck. And he wore a red, bright red uh, dinner jacket when he married us. And we had communion. We had Lorna Doone cookies. And if you remember the old Matus wine bottles that were shaped like a heart,
uh-huh.
Portuguese wine, we had communion with that. And thank God he put on a black robe. And my mother was sure he was a Presbyterian minister.
That was important to her, huh?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I am so glad you took the time and shared all of these wonderful adventures with us. And of course, we're happy to have you here at Westminster Shores, and happy that your family is close. I think that's such a wonderful feeling and wonderful thing to have your family close by. Although I know you haven't seen them probably in a while, but
Well, when we had visitors, they would come and pull into the porte cochere, and we talk on the phone, and they'd wave at us. And the grandkids are so lucky. They have their great grandfather here. He's 94.
wow,
And so we have 4 generations,
that's
and
great.
that all together. It's wonderful.
That is wonderful. Yeah. So Dave, thank you so much. And I'm glad you're sharing with us, and I'm sure Carol um, might might be interested in having her life story shared and recorded. That would be wonderful. But say hello to her, and hopefully
Okay.
we see you all soon, and we can all be back together. But I know we're opening up slowly and surely, so hopefully the trips will not have to wait too long, because I know you're missing those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cup
Thank,
cup.
thank you, Dave.